Welcome to Jared Scott Outdoors, your source in the field for local outdoor news. This week on Jared Scott Outdoors, we're going to follow Nathan for several months as he tries his second year at trapping. He's after beavers and muskrats as well as any other fur-bearing critter he can find. Nathan started trapping last season back in the early winter and just wrapped it up this spring. Let's see how he did. We'll start off the season trying to deal with some pesky beavers that were cutting down trees that the landowners really wanted. They called us to see if we could help stop the problem. First, we had to find where they were coming from. That didn't take too long as we were able to just follow the path of chopped down trees and freshly chewed limbs in the water. Once we found the den, I used a stick to find where their entrance was that led into it.
Filling around in this den, we finally found where the entrance is. It's kind of in the calmer spot, all clear. Right here is really fast, and since it kind of funnels out the water, this spot is super clear. We have this beaver that's been taking down a lot of trees. We've had some friends call us up and asked us to take care of it. But it's in a stretch of this river that's really strong. And we found where its hole is up into its den, and it's in the calmest spot we can find. We made it so it's as strong as it can be because we've had beavers in the past dislodge and move our traps around. So we have wires connected to the branch holding the trap down, two different branches that are going to be anchored down to the ground. Then we have extra wire up here that we can tie up onto a tree or by it. So then if the beaver sets it off and moves it down the stream, it doesn't go away. Now we have the challenge of trying to bring this over to the den and without setting it off and getting it set up.
He was able to get the trap across the river without setting it off and then slowly worked it into the mouth of the entrance, making sure that the trap wasn't triggered from all of the nearby branches.
Now it's in position, we're going to use this extra wire and wire it up to another tree so it's as straight as we can make it.
Well, now with that said, we're going to come back here in a couple days. We'll check it, see what's going on, but I think he's got a good set here, so we'll hopefully be able to take care of these beavers that are causing such a problem right now. Two days later, we were back to see if he had any luck with the pesky beavers. As you can see, we were checking it at night. With Nathan's other commitments, this was the only time we could go check it since they have to be checked regularly. We just put on the headlamps and went in.
There's those ones.
That's where the trap is.
There is actually a beaver in here. So now we're going to take out the trap, reset it, and hopefully get another one.
With the beaver in the trap, now we had to wrestle it and the beaver out of the river and on shore. Then we reset the trap to try to get the adults.
As you see, this is a little one. He's one of this year's young. There's been more branches moved and set up right next to him since he's got. So there's more there. Hopefully we get the adults that are causing all this problem back here, and they'll be the big ones.
A few days later, we were back out to check the trap. This time we made it with a little daylight left. Fighting the strong current, we both crossed the river. We could see lots of fresh sticks covering the location of the trap, so we still weren't quite sure if we had something or not. One thing was for sure, the beavers were still quite active.
We're going to cross over and see if we got another one.
As you saw earlier, we headed across the river to check the trap and just found it covered with fresh sticks. We couldn't see if there was a beaver in it yet, but one thing was for sure, there was still at least one very active beaver. We pulled a bunch of limbs out of the way and could at least tell the trap had been triggered. Every time we come in here and set the trap, we have to pull some of this brush out. But they come in and they fixed it again.
It tripped the trap without getting trapped. We're going to take out the trap since we're going to be gone for the next couple of weeks. Since we can't check it every 36 hours each time we set it, we're going to take it out until we get more time.
Now fast forward over a month to the 1st of January. Like Nathan, I decided to get my trapping permit as well. Checking out a new area along the South Fork, I found where a beaver had just recently been chewing on some trees and dragging branches into the river. I could tell the beaver had just been there, so I figured it would be a good place to make a set. All right, so we've got that beaver run coming up right here
it's taken down a couple trees up here, and so it's coming up and getting more branches, I'm guessing, every night. So what I've done in the middle of this run, I've got the trap set up right here, and then I shaved off some fresh bark off a branch that it had actually cut down, stuck it right here, blocked it off with a big log on each side, hoping to guide it right through the trap. So hopefully this scent here with this fresh bark and whatnot will pull that beaver in right through that trap at night. See how it works out.
I also found a beaver den further down the river in a big eddy. It was obvious from the fresh tree limbs that this was an active den, and so I placed a trap here as well. Here you can see all the extra branches I used to hold the trap in place and to guide any beaver through the trap and not around the outside of it.
Alright, so it's the next morning from when I set that beaver trap, and if you look down here, we actually came really close. I had this sitting right here for bait to kind of bring it up through it, and somehow it got a hold of it and pulled it through the trap and triggered it. So we managed to catch a tree limb, which is not the goal. So we'll reset it and hope for better luck next time.
Hopefully the other trap would be more successful. As we headed on over to have a look at it, I could tell right off there'd been something because all the sticks I'd placed to hold the trap were moved.
Well, on this one here that I set on an actual beaver den just outside of it, we got one on the first night. Looks like a pretty good one down there, so we'll pull it out.
Sometimes water can be deceiving, but not this time. I could tell it was big just by how hard it was to get it out of the water.
Oh yeah. He's a big one. All right, there he is, first beaver of my sets here. So you can tell he's a nice one, probably 50-60 pounder, so great way to start out the season.
It's now been 3 months since we've been out here the first time. It's the beginning of March. We're out here trying to take care of these beavers that's been chopping down these trees around here.
We would have been back sooner, but it got cold enough so quick that the ice really got thick. At that point, we just decided to wait till the ice came off. As you can see on the riverbed, there were lots of fresh-looking limbs from the beavers, so we figured they were still around. But as we looked more carefully, it was almost like the den had been partially taken apart. Then we saw a big hole that went straight into the den. We weren't sure if it was an animal or what had done it, but it sure gave us second thoughts about having any success here.
We came out here to set the trap, and we noticed this big hole inside the den. Hasn't been fixed yet, and where it's a beaver den, you'd imagine it'd be fixed. We don't know if the beavers are even still here or if they've gone somewhere else. So we're going to set the trap and see if they're even still here.
We set the trap, but neither one of us really had any optimism that this was going to pan out.
We came out here looking for new places, and we found 8 dens within 30 yards of each other. And we've spooked a couple, we've checked one of them, and had our stick attacked by one. So we're going to set 2 traps, that's all we've got. Hopefully we can wish for the best.
If you've seen beaver dens, you usually expect to see a huge pile of sticks hiding their entrance. Well, as you can see, this area was nothing like that, but rather just several entrances lined up along the bank. Their actual den or dens must have been back up in the dirt bank quite a ways.
Here's one den. It's not your typical den. They're building up into the side of the bank, and they're pretty big dens.
We only had a couple traps, so we just had to guess on which of the entrances to put the traps on. Just like before, we used 2 sturdy sticks that ran through the springs on each side to anchor the trap to the ground. Then, to make sure the beaver couldn't take off with our trap, we wired it to a nearby tree. Then a day or 2 later, we went out to see if the new area was going to be productive.
The water's dropped since yesterday when we set these traps, and they might, certain dens they can't get in, but this one we caught one in, just a little, or decent sized muskrat. We'll go check the other one.
A muskrat wasn't what we expected, but was still a good catch. As we headed over to check the other trap, it was easy to see there was nothing in it, because where there had once been water, it was dry. Then we checked out some of the other holes that we had put sticks in front of so we could see if other entrances were having any activity.
Came to this hole and there was a stick out, so Nate bent down to put it back in. The beaver came out and scared him halfway to death. And so we're gonna move the beaver trap that we didn't get anything in. We're gonna move it to this hole.
It's been 3 days since we set this trap with the lodge with the big hole in the side. So if there's nothing there, we know there's no activity and we'll move the trap to another set.
If you remember, because there was a hole in the den and it seemed to be partially torn apart, we didn't really have much hope of catching one here. To our surprise, however, the trap had been triggered and there was indeed another beaver in it.
Well, there's a beaver in here. We'll keep this trap here and see if there's any more. Got him out, just a smaller one. It's still a beaver, so we're going to keep the trap there and hopefully catch some more.
Now back to the traps that were along the bank and the section of the dry bed that was mysteriously drying up much earlier than it should have. As we got there, we were getting a little frustrated because without any running water, the ice didn't melt. And without the water, the ice just went clear to the ground and actually covered all the muskrat and beaver holes.
Usually this water doesn't dry up until the middle of April, but it's all dry now and it's putting a stop in our trapping. It's making it harder.
At this point, there were just a couple spots the critters could still get access into the water. And sure enough, as we walked up to one of those, we saw a beaver dart out and under the ice. Of course, this would be where we'd move our trap to. Back the next day, we were going to see if we'd finally get one of those beavers on that dried out section of river.
Came back out to check the traps. Looks like we have one. Going to go check it out.
Right on time, coming back. Is that the beaver that freaked you out?
This is the place where the water has been going down and it's actually came up again. And this is the beaver that I think is the one that's been coming out of the dens constantly. And it's actually a pretty nice beaver.
This is the beaver we caught, and it's about 45, 50 pounder.
Where the water dropped, there's a crack right through the middle of the ice. And the water's kind of seeped up through that. And the beavers seem to made this mound to kind of get up out of the ice. We moved our trap because all the other dens or the ice has almost filled them up. So we're going to give this a whirl with the trap and hopefully we get something.
Then it was back to the set for the beavers that the landowner wanted us to take care of, but that had the den that was broken down.
We got one here yesterday. We're going to check it, see if there's another one here. Nothing here. Next day, went out, got a beaver. My dad wasn't with us to film it, but we trapped it where the ice was cracked and they were getting up over onto the little mud thing. And it's another 45, 50 pound. Yeah, we're gonna get a good height of it. It's been a couple days, we're out here checking the trap again. Last time there was nothing there. If there's nothing here again, we'll pull the trap and set somewhere else.
With no more activity, we pulled the trap and brought it to shore.
We've been out to check the trap on our beaver den. I was thinking there was a beaver messing with my trap, pushing the traps to the side. But it actually was a porcupine. We finally got it. As far as porcupines go, you can trap them year round. So it's kind of a fun catch and we're going to try skinning. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we'll try.
In the end, we found that you pluck the quills and that's what can be used on a porcupine. It sure made for an interesting way to end the trapping season. I hope you enjoyed the show. Tune in next week at the same time for another episode of Jared Scott Outdoors.